Oh, you do? Yeah, go talk to him. Yeah.
Said 6:30. Where were you? Simon, how you doing? Good to see you, sir. Yeah, how are things? Yeah, this is how you're spending your summer off? Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually here for work. So yeah, I'm not in an official capacity, but for media requests and information about it. So, I work at the Development Services Bureau, so we're actually doing the permitting on this thing. Yeah, so yeah, very hot topic. So, in case somebody wants to know what's going on, we have a guy here who'll be talking on behalf of the bureau. So, yeah. Is your mom here? Okay. Hey, Jerry. Good to see you. Yeah, you better. Where they got you? See right there. I'm gonna take my seat. I think this is
Mind?
about the material store. Yeah. What did you guys up there have yours or?
Oh, we just ended up putting
What?
these.
We can add one.
Thank you. Hi.
Nice to meet you. I'll be the first time on.
Get out that door as quick as you can.
Nice to meet you as well. Thank you so much for making time for that. Looking forward to after this one of the briefing. Hi. Hello, Sean. Joanne, how to speak. Pleasure to meet you.
I think so, if I can
Thanks
find
for
my
being here.
pen.
Appreciate it. My nice strong team. Howdy.
How you doing?
Hey, howdy. I'm well. How about you?
Want to sit up here with us or be in the front row?
My spoon.
Okay. Or the back row?
I have my phones. I'm trying to figure out if I...
Raise your hand if you can hear my voice. 2 requests before we start. One is now, could you raise your hand if you have a seat beside you so we can get more people in? And the other is if you lost these glasses, I have them. Oh, are they yours?
I always have about 3 pair of glasses. I tend to lose them. Guess I didn't get the memo about red. It's like red was the color to wear today. Who knew?
I look horrible in it.
How do you?
Yeah, with my
Doesn't work.
Welcome. Can everybody see me? I'm over here. The goal of this evening, can everybody hear me?
No.
Okay, let's get a little closer. Oh my goodness. Now I can hear me. Okay, now, how's that? Hey, okay. The goal of this evening is to have community members share opinions and insight with council and with each other. I'd like to acknowledge that Commissioners Fritz and Fish are out, and their staff is in attendance if you need to speak to them. Bathrooms are right outside to the left, and we also have coffee and cookies. My name is Frances Portillo, and I am the facilitator. And I would like to start out by reading the land acknowledgement. We humbly acknowledge that the Portland metropolitan area rests on the traditional village sites of the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin Kalapuya, Malala, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia, Wimal, and Willamette rivers. Today, Greater Portland's diverse and vibrant Native communities, over 60,000 strong, descended from more than 350 tribes, both local and distant. We take this opportunity to offer respectful recognition to the Native communities in our region today and to those who have stewarded this land through the generations. Thank you. I believe we have been working on that all hour. I am not sure we are going to be able to accommodate that. We have been trying, I guarantee you. So we're going to begin with, and thank you. We are going to begin with the opening statements from the present members of the Portland City Council, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioner Udaly, and Commissioner Hardesty. Starting with Mayor Wheeler.
Very good, thank you. Welcome everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. As you can expect, we're in a different place than usual. You can expect there'll be a few technological glitches, so please bear with the technical staff as they work through those. I also want to thank the University of Portland for giving us this space tonight. If we had done this at City Hall, we would have had to break up into 4 or 5 different rooms, and we really wanted everybody to be able to be in the same room. So thank you to the University of Portland. We're all here tonight because of an issue that concerns the entirety of this community. We've read and we've heard a lot about the Zenith fossil fuel facility. We've also heard concerns from people more broadly about fossil fuels in the city of Portland. I have heard from many of you and many of my constituents that go well beyond just the people in this room who have expressed a real concern and anxiety about the potential for increased oil trains going through our densely populated neighborhoods. And I know you're here because you acknowledge, as I do, that that creates a potential public safety, public health, and environmental risk. And I'm also concerned as your mayor about the possibility of future fossil fuel exports from the city of Portland. From my perspective, that's a non-starter. In 2017, 2 years ago now, I brought a 100% renewable energy resolution to the Portland City Council. And our City Council passed that resolution unanimously, and that became our guiding course, is to move to a fossil-free future and to move towards a 100% renewable energy future. To that end, I recently, as we started reading stories about Zenith and hearing information about Zenith, I convened local, regional, and statewide leaders to talk about what could we do to limit the expansion of fossil fuels here in the city of Portland. And we brainstormed some ideas. Similarly, I brought together city bureaus. There's many different city bureaus under the control of different commissioners who all have a role to play in local regulation of the fossil fuel industry. And we talked about what we could do to help stave off that fossil fuel expansion in our community. And later on tonight from the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability and others, you're going to hear some of the ideas that they brainstormed, and they're going to put those out for your consideration going forward. And last but not least, we also convened a group of environmental advocacy organizations. You're going to hear from a number of them tonight. And we asked them, what ideas do you have? How could we work together? How could we bring our regional, our statewide, our local government partners together, our environmental partnership, our community organizations, and the people of this community? How can we come together and work together on a practical strategy, one that is legal, one that will actually work to help us prevent the expansion of fossil fuel facilities here in the city of Portland? So I view this as really the first part of the public conversation. This isn't the last of it. This is really just opening up the door, beginning that initial conversation, putting ideas on the table, and hearing from you, most importantly, about ideas that you may have that we haven't even considered that should be on the table. So I want to thank you for that. And last but not least, I want to say this. I am keenly aware of the fact that we are in a transitional time when it comes to energy. But I am also keenly aware that in cities like Kalamazoo, Michigan, and most recently in the city of Mosier in the Columbia River Gorge, where 96 trains derailed, 96 oil train cars derailed, and in Quebec, Canada, where half of a town literally burned to the ground and 44 people were killed when a train carrying flammable oil material crashed in that town. I do not want that to be either the present or the future for the city of Portland, and I am determined to do something about it, and that's why I'm here with you tonight. So I look forward to working with you and my colleagues on that shared strategy going forward. I thank you again for being here tonight. I'll turn it over to the Council President, Commissioner Udaley.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you of University of Portland for hosting us tonight, but especially thank you to all of you for coming out to stand up against the further development of fossil fuel infrastructure in our city. I was invited to tour the Zenith facility. I've certainly seen the outside of it at a recent protest. And it was suggested to my staff that I couldn't attend this meeting tonight without touring that facility. Well, I did not tour the facility because I don't need a tour to know that tar sand oil is dirty and dangerous from extraction to processing, to transport, to use, and that we don't want more of it traveling through our city. So, judging by the number of people in red in the audience, I think it's safe to assume that most of us agree that we have to take dramatic and swift action to avert a coming climate catastrophe. You are, tonight, welcome to offer any insight or ideas about what the city could or should do, but I want to tell you about three areas that we are considering for future action. One is to revise and expand our current code, which limits fossil fuel development. 2, quicken our work to transition to clean, renewable fuels. And 3, in the meantime, require fossil fuel companies to pay for the risk that the fossil fuel industry presents to our community. This is so much more fun than a regular council meeting, Mayor.
It's not over yet.
Okay. So, as we put together a plan for how to respond, it's going to be important for us to stay as connected as possible, because while we may not reach consensus on how to proceed tonight, the fossil fuel industry is clearly united in what it intends to accomplish. Maximize profits, minimize safety and environmental regulations, through various means, funding false and misleading research, spending lavishly to distort and devalue political and scientific processes, and seemingly the willingness to gladly end life as we know it on this planet. So we've got to stick together to defeat them. I want to thank you again for coming out tonight, for everything you do for our city, and I'm really excited to hear the conversation tonight.
I want to add my appreciation for you making time to be here tonight to make sure that your voice becomes part of the public record. I want to thank you because you have been engaged in this issue for quite some time, and I love that you are pushing us to think bolder and braver than we believe we can. I know that the city of Portland has been working hard to try to figure out how we can legally make sure that the limits that we place around this industry are legally defendable, and that we as a community will get what we want, which is to ensure that we are in a transition phase and that we are clear that what we're about is green energy and not dirty energy. We've been involved in this issue since we first took office. My staff met with protesters on the train tracks. I was very clear about directing my bureaus, the Bureau of Emergency Management and the Fire Bureau, to look really in depth at options that were ahead of us. We've met with coalition members to discuss a path forward. We toured Zenith to see the facility and to ask really hard questions. And as you may know, I took the no fossil fuel money pledge, $0 from the fossil fuel industry. The reality is that we are facing some limitations, but we're working to be visionary and proactive and making sure that we have a meaningful proposal that addresses community concerns. And before I let go of the mic, I want to acknowledge Michael Llewellyn, who today is his first day at the University of Portland in his new position as Vice President of Equity and something. Thank you, and I am so thrilled that you all are here. Let's get this show on the road.
Thank you. Are you able to see the screen a little bit better now? Good, thank you. So a little bit to go over the agenda for the rest of the night. We are going to have some guest presentations, and they will speak for 2 minutes each. And then we will open it up to the public's testimony based on the sign-in sheet that I have. I will call you up. And then we will they will have a chance to respond, and if you have questions, there will be people from the staff coming by to collect those on cards. Did you give those cards out, Amy? Where are you? Yes, so they have the cards? Great. And they will come around and collect them, and Amy will also be your timekeeper, so that's who you're looking for. A couple of things before we start. Some shared agreements so that we can hear from everyone. Everyone who is speaking has a right to share their views respectfully, and everyone has a right to feel safe. So we will start with our invited testimony, and we will start, again, 2 minutes to speak. Columbia Riverkeeper, Kate Murphy. Yeah.
Thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Kate Murphy, and I'm a community organizer with Columbia Riverkeeper. As of today, 145 days have passed since the mayor and city council members expressed outrage and opposition to Zenith's plan to make Portland a hub for dangerous heavy tar sands oil. Since that time, thousands of Portlanders have urged the city to take action. The city must consider the entire scope of this threat when deciding how to approach its opportunities for evaluating the Zenith terminal. Zenith is not alone in this trend. Global Partners is currently seeking approvals from Oregon DEQ to expand its oil shipments through a former ethanol plant near Clatskanie, Oregon. These trains may also carry tar sands crude, and they pose a dramatic risk to communities upstream and downstream from Portland. In response to the many known risks and considering existing resolutions, we ask the city to take the following actions. The city of Portland should stop approving any permits related to Zenith expansions. Whether for electrical systems, rail unloading platforms, or new piping, the city needs to hold the line against Zenith gathering new approvals to expand its operation. Remember, it was a single pipe link across an environmental overlay zone that allowed the city of Portland to review and ultimately reject the Pembina LPG terminal years ago. These small issues may offer the critically important leverage that the city needs to rein in Zenith oil train terminal plans. We would support the city in adopting an additional ordinance to address offloading and transloading facilities, ban the storage of unrefined fossil fuel, and possibly revise or add policies to the comprehensive plan. We ask the city to engage with DEQ in Title V air quality permit renewal processes for Zenith and Global Partners in Clatskanie. The city should use its own authority to oppose the extension of these permits, which directly conflict with Portland's comprehensive plan goals and the health and safety of the community. Finally, on behalf of Columbia Riverkeeper, the Stop Zenith Collaborative, and many others, I want to present over 1,000 petition signatures and statements, a small snapshot of the many thousands of voices who will stand with the city of Portland in stopping this rush to tar sands before it starts.
Thank you. Next, Audubon Society, Bob Salinger.
Good evening. Thank you for holding this hearing tonight. We appreciate it. Audubon has been working for decades to protect and restore this river. And this community is tired of industries that come in here and pollute and put our communities at risk. It's time for that to stop. The Zenith facility will quadruple the number of oil trains coming into that facility. 1/4 of all the residents of Portland will be in the blast zone of these oil trains as they pass through. And this oil is coming from the tar sands, one of the most polluted places on the planet. Put simply, this facility will put our community at unacceptable risk. It'll put our environment at unacceptable risk. To Zenith, we understand you have a representative in the room here tonight. You owe it to this community to stand up and face the community. You owe it to us to tell us how you are going to keep our community and our environment safe. And I suspect you're not willing to do it because you know that you can't. For City Council, again, we appreciate this hearing and we appreciate the list of ideas that you have put out to deal with the fossil fuel hub that exists on the north reach of the Willamette. We support all of these ideas. We think you should move forward, and we do need a comprehensive strategy for doing so. We would add to that list that you need to look at the next economic opportunity analysis update and really come up with a true vision for how we're going to make the North Reach of the Willamette healthy, safe, and vibrant, because it's anything but today. You also need to incorporate in habitat restoration and floodplain protection. We not only need to worry about earthquakes, we need to worry about flooding as climate change proceeds. But we need to keep the focus tonight on Zenith. We need to keep it on the immediate threat, because this facility is going to last for decades. And the last thing we need to do is add more fossil fuel infrastructure. So we urge you to immediately proceed forward with implementing the ban that was passed a couple of years ago, so we never find ourselves in this situation again. Do it now. Do it at the next hearing. Move it forward. And we urge you to fight every single permit, every single application. Work with your sister agencies, work with the feds, work with the state, and let Zenith know that they're not welcome and they can't proceed forward.
I love the enthusiasm. We will also get more people in if we either show with hands or keep moving. And I apologize for only getting the first name. Portland Youth Climate Council, Solomon.
My name is Solomon Duke, and I am here representing the Portland Youth Climate Council. Are 108 schools in danger enough? What about 100 childcare facilities? Or the $25,792,647,580 of property at risk? What will it take to put a stop to this expansion? By 2030, it will be too late. Before I turn 30, the world our children live in will be drastically different than it is today. Before my baby cousin turns 13, we will either be bounds ahead in our path to a sustainable future, or we will be living in a world of regret. If Zenith creates this petroleum expansion, it will increase their train capacity by nearly 4 times and allow for 12 trains a week carrying 1 million gallons of crude oil. If an accident occurs, there could be millions of dollars of infrastructure destroyed, and it would disproportionately affect people of color. There are 108 schools and 100 childcare facilities within the half-mile evacuation zone, where toxic, flammable, and explosive chemicals are being transported. Our future is drowning in a barrel of fossil fuels, and our chance to save it is fleeting. If we don't act, the coral reefs will die, the ice caps will melt, droughts and storms will wipe across the planet, and you will have to tell your children why you took their world away. Each era in geologic history has been ended by a mass extinction. The Paleozoic, the Mesozoic, the Cenozoic. I fear that we are entering into a new era once again. Our politicians and businesses need to understand that we are dealing with the possible mass extinction of most of the life on our planet. But that doesn't need to happen. We have the necessary tools to stop the destruction of our ecosystem. We need our leaders to end the expansion of dirty fossil fuels and create a world that embodies Portland's values of climate justice, equity, and sustainability. The people of Portland have said no to fossil fuels. Now it is time for the city to put action behind those words and finally stop Zenith. Our world is truly breathtaking, and we should never give it up.
Thank you. From the Center for Sustainable Economy, Nick Caleb.
I'm very tall. Is it possible to take this off? Okay.
Before you start, Before you start, let me just get the other names so we'll have them up here. So following you will be Sustainable Economy and Energy Network, Mia Reebok. So stand over here and wait.
Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to speak tonight. Thanks, everybody who joined. Since 2015, the City of Portland has explicitly adopted an agenda to restrict the growth of the fossil fuel economy while promoting the growth of renewable energy and energy efficiency measures. Numerous unanimously approved resolutions and ordinances, plus a ballot initiative approved overwhelmingly by Portland voters, demonstrate the immense and growing popularity of this trajectory. Zenith's oil export operations and expansion run counter to this trajectory, putting the global climate and Portland's residents at great risk. City Council has repeatedly acknowledged the dangers of operations like Zenith. In 2016, Council formally declared opposition to the tar sands and in support of the actions of the Standing Rock Sioux to blockade the Keystone XL pipeline. We must renew this commitment to all communities who are on the front lines of dangerous fossil fuel projects and climate change by stopping Zenith and any more projects like it. The courageous actions of frontline communities in North America against the tar sands have been extremely successful at stopping oil and gas pipelines, which is a big reason that investors are bottom-lining dangerous projects like Zenith's oil-by-rail operations. Today, the Center for Sustainable Economy released a report called Crude Bailout that details the ways in which billionaires and private equity funds are trying to recoup their investments in tar sands by taking advantage of communities like Portland as they desperately try to demonstrate market demand for their dirty product. If they get their way, they will reap the financial returns on dirty investments that push our civilization into climate chaos while we take on all of the risks. While the city continues to make progress on an increasingly ambitious climate agenda, which you'll hear a little bit more on tonight, we hope it will soon include a community-driven plan for a managed decline of existing fossil fuel infrastructure. We need to oppose Zenith at every available opportunity. Each permit the city grants to Zenith is material support for the fossil fuel industry and intolerable at this point in history. We know that we will have to take legal and political risks to build the world we want because it involves disentangling ourselves from an entrenched system that was designed by and for the fossil fuel industry. Our community is ready, and we know what needs to be done. We have and continue to develop solutions in Portland. We need the bold leadership to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we start, let me call the last two. Jessica Becker from 350 PDX and Dr. Patricia Kohlberg, Physicians for Social Responsibility.
Well, thank you, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners Udaly and Hardesty for hosting tonight's forum. My name is Mia Reebach, and I work with the Sustainable Energy and Economy Network. We are part of a coalition of organizations that have been working to transform Portland to stop fossil fuels and move instead onto cleaner forms of renewable energy. I want to thank the Portland City Council for your past action to pass resolutions to oppose crude oil trains in the city of Portland, a resolution opposing new fossil fuel infrastructure, the ordinance to oppose new storage tanks that BPS is planning to reinstate. Thank you for working on that. And a resolution to transition to renewable energy. These are all amazing things to be proud of, and so I, like many others, was surprised and angry in March of 2018 when we learned that a new company had bought an old asphalt terminal and immediately upon purchasing the facility began importing Canadian tar sands, loading it onto marine tanker, and sending it to global market. Even prior to expanding its facility, Zenith flipped an old facility that was not being used to invest in the most climately destructive form of fossil fuel. We need to be moving away from this, and we need to be acting quickly. I want to reiterate what my colleagues have already said, that the City Council needs to be denying and stopping every new permit, appeal, or exemption requested by Zenith, and especially want to call on you to stop a new pipeline proposed to be built under Front Avenue. We cannot trust this corporation and what they are telling us any new infrastructure built for their facility supports tar sands, supports fossil fuels, and climate chaos. We know we have safer forms of renewable energy, and that we need to be investing here locally on the good jobs and safer jobs. Zenith might say it's modernizing its facility, but that does nothing to prevent the risks from oil trains, derailments, spills in the Willamette River, and ultimately climate change. So we're calling on you, the City Council, as well as all of the city staff here today, to do everything in your power to stop this facility, and to go beyond that, to step into further places of leadership to stop this facility and keep fossil fuels out of Portland for good. Thank you.
I know how to study this. Hello, you all. My name is Jessica Beckett. I'm the executive director at 350 PDX. Thank you. No, you. Thank you very much for the opportunity for us to share our deep concerns about Zenith's operations in this city. Right now, the city is complicit in the expansion, storage, transportation, and burning of the most destructive form of energy on Earth. We appreciate the city's recently proposed plans to address the problem of tar sands and toxic crude oil, but we must be moving more boldly and more quickly if we are ever to reach 100% renewable energy. Not to mention to redress the harms done to frontline communities who must every day breathe and live in this injustice. 350 PDX, and if I could be so bold, it sounds like everyone in this room urges you to do the following: deny any upcoming permits, any of them, including the recent application for a new pipe on Front Avenue. Treat all such permits with the skepticism they have earned. Insist on public hearings like this one before any permitting decision is made. We want you to work with the DEQ to ensure that Zenith's plans receive detailed agency and public review, including environmental, public health, and climate assessments of Zenith's operations. We ask that you implement the fossil fuel zoning code amendments that made history when passed unanimously in 2016, and hold companies like Zenith accountable for attempting to circumvent them. Finally, until all of this is complete, we ask that you place a stop work order on Zenith's operations. All of them. All of them. The Northwest Industrial District is where Portland's just transition away from fossil fuel and towards renewable energy can be a reality. This industrial zone can be a model for community-driven renewable energy projects like the Portland Clean Energy Fund. Yeah, which can power our city on affordable clean energy and provide jobs to thousands of Portlanders. We have a vision for this community, and we believe that you share that vision. And what we ask is that you take leadership in bringing that vision into reality for us all. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you so much for this opportunity to express my opposition from a public health perspective to the transformation of our city into a crude oil export terminal. My name is Dr. Patricia Kohlberg. I served for more than 2 decades as medical director and assistant health officer for Multnomah County Health Department. I am also a member of the Healthy Climate Action Team for Physicians for Social Responsibility, and I am testifying on their behalf tonight. And off the cuff, I would like to make one suggestion. You know, there's a whole ream of public health laws that you might want to look at in regards to this project. So our principal objections, and there are many, to the Zenith crude oil export terminal include air quality in Portland is already poor. Even in the absence of any kind of accident or toxic spill, the diesel fumes from several more trains passing through our city per week would further degrade air quality with negative impacts not only on our collective health but on our economy as well. Diesel exhaust includes hundreds of toxic elements and causes eye, nose, throat, lung irritation, worsens chronic respiratory and heart conditions, and contributes to premature death. The communities that would be most exposed to diesel fumes from the trains and would be most at risk for the devastating impacts of fire, explosion, or toxic spills are already economically distressed, more heavily polluted, and inhabited by disproportionate numbers of people of color. I included in my written testimony some maps that show you all this. So we have the same old story that the people most excluded from the economic and social rewards of our society are those who are subjected to the most risk from dangerous and polluting industries. Oil train derailments, explosions, and toxic spills are not uncommon. Such an accident within Portland could kill and injure large numbers of people in the vicinity and could result in unprecedented contamination of our air, our water, and our soil. Diluted tar sands or dilbit is known to contain volatile organic compounds, heavy metals, and other toxins. The list of potential adverse health effects from exposure to dilbit is very long and includes heart and lung disease, developmental problems in children, low birth weight, and various forms of cancer. Hydrogen sulfide, a known constituent of dilbit, is particularly toxic. Acute exposure to high levels can result in death within minutes to hours. Okay, I would like to close by noting that the public health impacts of climate change are numerous and profound and potentially devastating to our way of life in the Pacific Northwest. Becoming a crude oil export terminal takes us precisely in the wrong direction. It is short-sighted in the extreme. Thank you.
We'll now begin the public testimony portion. And again, to remind you, everyone who's speaking has the right to share their views respectfully and the right to feel safe.
Francis, would it
Yes.
be helpful to introduce some of the other folks who are up here so people know who they're testifying?
Absolutely. So could we start here and if you introduce yourselves? And before we do that, so these are the people who will be listening and will be responding as well. Thank you.
So I'm Terry Whitehill. I'm with the Bureau of Development Services. I'm the building official for the City of Portland.
I'm Tom Armstrong. I'm a supervising planner with the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability and working on the readoption of the fossil fuel terminal zoning code.
Good evening. My name is Nate Takara. I'm the Fire Marshal for Portland Fire and Rescue.
My name is Robert Taylor. I'm a Chief Deputy City Attorney at the City Attorney's Office.
And my name is Mike Myers. I'm your Emergency Manager.
Thank you. So we're going to begin the public testimony. And again, I have 2 sheets of people who have signed up. I would love to get through all of them. So again, just a reminder that, and it actually looks really impressive when it's quiet and everybody's moving their arms, their pom-poms, things. I'm going to call 5 people up at a time, and we could have 2 and 3 at either microphone. Again, Amy's going to be giving the time, and we'll let you know when you have 1 minute and when you have time's up. I feel like one of the most important sounds in the world is our own name, so forgive me if I don't get your name pronounced quite right. Okay, first 5. Caroline Cervallo, Alana Steinke, Inga Fisher-Williams, Paul Spindle, and Catherine Chudy. Yes.
Can I go ahead? Okay, cool. Good evening. My name is Caroline Travelo, and I am 15 years old. Like any kid, I have dreams for my life. I want to go to medical school and become a child psychiatrist. So I know I have 8 years of college ahead of me and 5 years of residency, plus a lot of student debt. But beyond that, things are uncertain. When I decide where to live, I have to take into consideration how the climate is impacting the area. Forest fires and drought, desertification, sea level rise, inland flooding, and intensified hurricanes will narrow my possibilities more than I care to imagine. I am not old enough to even run for office or vote, yet the decisions you make will impact me more greatly than they impact you. Commissioner Hardesty, when I am your age, it'll be the year 2060. Will I be able to eat the crab from the ocean or take a hike with my grandkids to enjoy the fresh air from the Columbia Gorge? Do people my age have a right to enjoy the same abundance that was passed on to you? When I was about 5, my mom would take me to a local farm to pick berries. It was a popular place with families because there were some farm animals wandering around. Well, I fell in love with a chicken named Frida. She was one of those chickens who had her eyes covered up because of all of her fluffy feathers. I held her for hours. I was obsessed with her. And then I figured out that the chicken taco my dad bought me at Chipotle meant I was causing a chicken to die. And I haven't eaten chicken since. Every action has a consequence. The consequence of older generations' actions and inaction have left us with a climate crisis. Some may say that stopping the Zenith oil terminal expansion will not in and of itself save my future, but your decisions are impactful. You have the power in the city. If an asteroid was heading toward our planet and you stopping what is happening at Zenith would save us, would you stop them? Will you look me in the eye and tell me that anything will stop you from doing what you know is right and moral? This is an emergency. You have the vision and the wisdom to stand up to this moment, and our future is in your hands. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alona Steinke. I'm a retired RN living in Vancouver. I have very strong roots here in Portland, having been born and raised here, and my ancestors settled here. My family's historic cemetery is that little green oasis at Terminal 4. The fate of Zenith affects all of us on both sides of the Columbia. This expansion could quadruple the number of trains carrying tar sands crude from Canada down the Columbia Gorge through Camas and Vancouver before crossing over to Portland. As Mayor Wheeler mentioned, on June 3rd, 2016, a train carrying Bakken crude derailed in the gorge at Mosier, caught fire, and oil went into the river. Miraculously, that day the wind was not blowing, or the town would no longer be there. If that train had been carrying tar sands, there would have been the added danger of hydrogen sulfide. At high levels, it kills your sense of smell, and then it kills you. In the river, the heavy tar sands crude would sink, making it impossible to remove. The gorge is a precious national scenic area, and the Columbia River has been named among America's endangered rivers. A river that is at the crossroads where key decisions will determine its fate. Climate change is an emergency, and it requires immediate action. We must stop all new fossil fuel infrastructure and the expansion of existing ones. Please deny all permits related to Zenith expansion. These are not ordinary times, and this requires extraordinary action. It's up to us to decide what kind of world we want for our grandchildren and for those who follow. One way or another, we will defend this precious thin green line.
What's that? Great. Good evening. I am not Paul. Paul was gracious enough to cede me his time. Thanks, Paul. My name is Ryan Rittenhouse. I'm the conservation organizer with Friends of the Columbia Gorge. And I just want to say real quick, it's so beautiful to see you all tonight. Just so that we make it absolutely and abundantly clear, real quick, if you're opposed to the Zenith terminal, please stand up. All right, thank you. Have a seat. So yeah, you see, you have overwhelming support here tonight. One of my favorite authors, and probably a favorite of many of the people in the room here, is Edward Abbey, and decades ago he wrote that growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of the cancer cell. Abbey meant that, obviously, in reference to any type of growth that was just done for pure economic gain without considering the side effects. But I can think of no other industry in the history of the human species to which that applies better than the oil industry. Not only do their emissions from the burning of their product directly cause cancer itself, but all of their side effects and all of their products contribute to cancerous effects not only on our communities, but on the global society in general. And it's not just global warming, it's not just direct impacts from emissions, it's also the entire plastic industry. That all comes from the oil industry. So as I said, I'm with Friends of the Columbia Gorge. Two people mentioned, including you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, the Mosier oil disaster that happened in the heart of the gorge. Obviously, that's what we had been worried about, and we are still concerned with that happening again. If there's one thing I can get across to you tonight, it's to remember not to ignore the cumulative impacts of projects like this. What the industry wants you to do is just to look at piecemeal permits, and they say, well, just look at this one pipe permit. Just look at this one aspect over here without looking at everything in a grand picture. So please remember the gorge, remember the constituencies that will all be affected by this, and that includes the Native American communities you opened tonight by giving that land acknowledgement, which we all appreciate, but really what you need to do is make sure you take every action here, not just to make amends for what our governments have done to the Native Americans, but what these industries continue to do to them and disenfranchise them. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Chuddy. I live in Vancouver, Washington, and I work in Portland. I am here because I care about what happens in my community and in this region, and I'm here to remind you that none of us exists in a vacuum. The actions that you take or that you don't take, and the decisions you make or don't make, have impacts not just locally, but across the river from you throughout the region, and ultimately in the world at large. I am on the board of the Oregon Conservancy Foundation, and we are deeply concerned that relentless consumption of fossil fuels is taking all of us over the cliff of irreversible catastrophic climate change. What is happening at Zenith is the latest example of unrestrained fossil fuel infrastructure development that flies in the face of what we really need in an immediate transition to a just and clean energy community that leaves fossil fuels in the ground. Portland City policy has recognized risks from fossil fuels to local health and safety, local airshed and waterways, which extend beyond Portland throughout rail communities in our region and to the climate that affects us, not just locally, but regionally and globally. Past policy commitments and current climate science make it imperative, not optional, that you act immediately and decisively to use your elected leadership positions to protect all of us from the imminent threat posed by the Zenith oil terminal expansion. Being proactive on climate requires that you be proactive against fossil fuel exploitation that benefits short-term profits for the few and sacrifices the health, safety, and ultimate welfare, not just of ourselves, but of those who will come after. We join with others in asking that you stop approving any permits related to Zenith expansion, proactively engage with state agencies that are reviewing Zenith's spill plans and oil pollution permits, and move forward with implementing your own fossil fuel zoning amendments in order to protect your city and our region from the Zenith threats and more of them. Thank you.
I had called Inga Fisher-Williams, and I'm going to call the next 5. Megan Essler, Dina T. Grossman, Mariah Schreiner, Deborah Komarine, and Ethan Eisner.
Yes. Okay, people, come on down. My name is Megan Essler, and I'm a member of the Portland Raging Grannies. And we promise we will only take 2 minutes, but we like to sing our protest. Okay.
Freight train going through. Carry no oil or coal as you do. Please don't blow up any towns. Keep that crude right in the ground. Mosier, Oregon may be small. What happened there tells us heed that call. To stop destructive coal and oil. Don't let our gorge be spoiled. 4 times as many trains, outrage. Earth's destruction at a major stage. Most everyone who's in the know says this terminal must be no. Portland, Oregon is big enough to make a huge difference if we stand tough. Dare to keep oil in the ground so our land is safe and sound. Demand to keep oil in the ground so our land is safe and sound.
Okay, good evening, City Commissioners and Mayor Wheeler. My name is Mariah Schreiner, and I will be speaking this evening on behalf of Sunrise PDX. This spring, as people and community organizations raised concerns about Zenith, Mayor Wheeler, you issued a statement saying, "We will continue to do everything we can to limit this expansion or get rid of it altogether." Today, over 4 months later, I stand before you asking, what have you done? What is your plan to shut down Zenith? Where is the leadership I expect from my government? Earlier today, Mayor Wheeler, I learned that you will be representing Portland in DC as you speak in front of the U.S. Senate Special Committee on the Climate Crisis. Congratulations on this honor. I've read your testimony, and I appreciate many of the points that you highlight. In the second half of your testimony, you address the opportunities for federal leadership on climate issues. You call on the Senate Democrats and federal government to take action, stating that, and I quote, "With your leadership, we can flip the narrative from we can't do that to how could we do that?" Mayor Wheeler and of the City Commissioners, I want to take a moment and reflect this testimony back to you, because you put it so well. When it comes to the Zenith facility and oil by rail, when it comes to bold climate action, with your leadership, we must flip the narrative to we can't do that, to what can we do, and how can we do it? Sunrise PDX and the people of Portland expect strong leadership on the climate crisis at the local level. We're tired of hearing words without action behind them. General platitudes about how you're opposed to the expansion of Zenith and the terminal, but your hands are tied when it takes to meaningful action. And so, with the hundreds of other Portlanders gathered here tonight, and many more who aren't represented, we call on you to immediately cease expansion of the Zenith export facility and ultimately shut it down entirely. The time to act boldly is now, to take the political risks to secure the future of our planet and its inhabitants. Thank you.
Shut it.
The idea, would you like to hear from our next speaker? Thank you.
Shut it down. My name is Deborah Romarin. I own and operate rental properties here in Portland. And legally, I must give my residents a 24-hour notice before entering their apartments. But if I witness smoke pouring from a unit, I will enter it with no notice. I will do whatever it takes to avert a disaster. Today, we're in a climate emergency, and we have to do whatever it takes. Last month was the hottest June temperature ever recorded on planet Earth. The mercury rose to nearly 115 degrees, not in Libya, but in France. And did you know that 10 days ago, Anchorage, Alaska hit a breaking 90 degrees? Should I go on? To the executives at Zenith Energy, I ask, what ethical code or religious dictum informs your lives that allows you to think pursuing a business model that further destroys the planet and thwarts the intent and spirit of Portland's regulations is a good idea? But now it's left to us who would be so negatively impacted by Zenith's expansion, and to our elected stewards to marshal every tool, every lever, every creative idea to halt this project. 3 months ago, I got arrested for the first time in my life at age 67. In desperation, I sat on the tracks to raise awareness. Was this action out of my comfort zone? Hell yes. But these are extraordinary times which call for extraordinary measures. And today I'm asking you, Mayor Wheeler, and the city council members to get out of your comfort zones and demonstrate an uncommon level of commitment to protect our health, safety, and climate, and sit on the Zenith rail tracks with us and get arrested. Lastly, this news would go viral, and your courage would embolden local officials in other communities to stand up to fossil fuel exploiters who care nothing for the common good, but only for the enrichment of their own bottom lines. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dina Grossman. I would like to thank Mayor Wheeler and the city council members and all the people sitting here. Thank you all for coming. As I was also thanked to the University of Portland. As I was sitting this afternoon thinking about what I'd like to say, a melody came to mind. So I'm going to read the poem, and then I'm going to tell you or sing the song. Hold the line, the thin green line. Zenith has no right to burn the line. Our city is at risk. Tar sands crude will spill, burning, exploding with toxic fumes that kill. We can't clean up the river. The tar sands crude sinks deep. Stop, Zenith, now or rue the day. We did not hold the line. Hold the line, the thin green line. Zenith has no right to burn the line. Our city is at risk. Tar sands crude will spill, burning, exploding with toxic fumes that kill. We can't clean up the river. The tar sands crude sinks deep. Stop, Zenith, now or rue the day. We did not hold the line. Hold Hold the line, hold the line, hold the line, hold the line. Thank you.
Before you go, Ethan, let me call up the next ones. Dick Harmon, Marilee Day, Camilo Marquez, Damon Moats Story, and Dr. Teodora Songas.
Good evening, members of the council and others who are here tonight. My name is Ethan Eisner. Commissioner Udaley, earlier you said that we need to prepare for the upcoming climate crisis. Well, I've got news. That crisis isn't upcoming, it's now. And as a member of the youth, I am acutely aware of this. From my mom working with butterflies and seeing their rapid decline to the greater flooding of Portland, we can see that climate change is not some distant future, but something that's affecting us, me, and my future in the present. Commissioners, when you see your house on fire, you run out, but you do not run away. You call the fire department. And today, we are calling on you to put this fire out. A fire that not only inhabits just our city or our country, but the world. You have said that we could give you suggestions for how to stop this, and I have one for you today. As the county of Multnomah did recently, signing on to the case of Juliana v. the United States government, I urge you to do the same. There is legal precedent for us to do this, just in our own backyard. For after all, it is not a question of if, but how. As you heard from Physicians for Social Responsibility and many others, there are a myriad of reasons to stop this. You have the ground to stand on, and now me, my generation, and all those in the audience today are asking you to act. Not only to listen to, but to speak. To go out and to make sure that our world is livable, that my world is livable, that the world for me, my children, their children, and the children after them are a place that they can call home, not a barren desert devoid of water and life, but a place that they can live. I can tell you this, if you do not act, we will make sure you do. We will stand up and tell you to act until you do. You do not want to ignore us because we will act until we are heard. So act, for I want a future that I can live, where everything can live, and where I can have a home.
Hello, my name is Marilee Day, and I'm a member of the Cully Association of Neighbors. And yay, Cully. And in May of this year, we wrote a resolution against the Zenith energy expansion in tar sands in Portland. This affects Cully often more than other neighborhoods. We are the most diverse neighborhood in the state of Oregon. 44% of our population is of color and from all over the world. And many of them can't get health care because they don't fit into affordable care, or they can't get it through their insurance. We have many trailer parks and many people who are living on the streets. We also have Columbia Boulevard and the trains coming through. We've been ignored for many years about the impact of our environment. We have one of the highest rates of asthma and one of the highest rates of diesel. We can't have these trains coming through. We wrote a resolution. I'm not going to tell you all of them. I'm going to hand it to you. We have 14 reasons why Zenith is a really bad idea for Cully and for Portland. We just ask you to stop it. to stop building it, to not give any more permits. And Cully would be very happy. Thank you very much.
Mayor and council members, my name is Dick Harmon. I'm 82. I came out of a sick bed to be here. My wife and I live with our grandchildren and great-grandchildren in Portland. And I want to take a minute to talk about power and how you could act that might give us some extra leverage. I spent a lifetime looking at power analyses of situations not too different from this, and here's what I see. Two major investment groups with unlimited amounts of money. The Koch brothers Ally Global Partners and Timothy Geithner and his partners. They invest together. They are on the boards together. The report that Nick mentioned earlier, that came out this morning, is a knockout report. Get your hands on that report. It puts all the links together. And I sat there and I read that part of it about the Geithner, the cooperation, the collaboration between these two investment groups, and they are basically joined together in Portland and Clatskanie. There is only one project on the river with two parts. The money going in is the same money. The people making the investment decisions are the same people. And toward the end of the report, they go to campaign contributions. Now, this is a nonpartisan meeting, so I just want to point out what they say. Global Partners has given our governor 40 grand, has given the Democratic Party 25 grand. Now, about 3 or 4 months ago, the Oregonian ran this series on money and Oregon politics as it affected the environment. It's filthy. It's unspeakable. So we have an opportunity in this situation to do something about everything that everyone has testified for, plus campaign finance cleanup. So here's what I propose. Here's what I propose. If I look at this situation objectively, these guys with their lawyers will wind the city around in an endless set of legal maneuvers. And they will play the city off against the state. And let's face it, folks, those of you who have been around 5, 6 years in these fights know that the state regulatory apparatus is generally crap. Now, there's a reason why it's not that they're bad people, but they have nice, quiet conversations with state legislators who control their budgets. That's where the leverage is. So, here's what I propose. A suggestion for the city council, please. I know I'm going a little over my time. I'm sorry. That the city council memorialize the governor to call a special session on 2 items. One is to pass any state regulations that are relevant that will tighten up this situation and give the city more leverage in this specific situation. Second, to give us at the state level campaign finance reform that's got some teeth in it, not this crap they put out on the table so far. Thank you.
while people are coming, I just wanted to acknowledge there's a whole bunch of folks outside that are unable to get in due to the limits and capacity. So I just wanted to appreciate the folks that are standing outside and can't come in.
Okay, my name is Damon Mott-Story. I'm the Healthy Climate Program Director at Oregon Physicians for Social Responsibility. And I'd like to cede my time to my amazing coworker and energy justice organizer, Yuvia Morello.
Hello, Wheeler City Council. My name is Yuvia Magali Morello, and I'm here today as an Oregon Physicians for Social Responsibility staff member, a concerned mother and community member, and an Indigenous woman. Thank you for this community forum to address the expansion of the Portland Zenith terminal. We have all come out here with little notice because our group of community, climate, and health experts recognize the immense and immediate danger that increasing transporting, storing, and shipping of tar sands and crude oil presents to our current and future communities. Our research shows that if new construction is completed, Zenith will achieve a 4-fold increase in railroad unloading capacity. This would mean at least a 4-fold increase of unnecessary and absolutely preventable risk of local seismic catastrophes. In Portland, our railways run along the sides of houses, parks, schools, animals, communities, and rivers. If we allow Zenith, who transports, stores, and ships tar sands and crude oils, to increase amounts of life-threatening chemical agents being transported, our communities will become sitting ducks for Zenith-induced community and health crisis. What we saw near Moser, Oregon, was a train derailment and with a trail derailment and oil spill in 2016 was disastrous, but would have been even worse had the derailment directly hit the nearby school. We can and must do better here in Portland. Today, I want you to understand that as a community and as stewards of this earth, that we cannot allow the Zenith Energy International and companies like them to put our health and well-being at such high risk, not to mention the irreparable damage to the wildlife, rivers, and land. We cannot allow the expansion now or ever. Wheeler and City Council, you have the power and responsibility to us, the people, and to our Mother Earth to deny any plans to expand the Portland Zenith terminal, and we need you to act now. Thank you for your time and attention today. We look forward to working together, but we're not waiting for your leadership. We are committed to counting and documenting trains passing through our community through our Oil Train Watch. Look for us on Twitter. Look for pictures of the trains. We're not waiting. We're taking action, and we hope you come with us.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Guy Berliner, and I'm speaking instead of my friend Camilo Marquez at his request. In years to come, to paraphrase the poet William Yeats, let it not be said of Portland that those who were the best lacked all conviction, while those who were the worst were full of passionate intensity. We are witnessing before our eyes the worst possible government, possibly in the history of this country, committing the worst, possibly most illegal acts for the worst possible reasons imaginable, and breaking all of the rules along the way to do it. if they can show that kind of passionate intensity, surely the least that we can ask of our own leaders is that they be willing to bend or possibly break the rules when necessary to defend our communities. And so I'd ask of you, as our leaders, to join the rest of us who are willing to put ourselves and our bodies on the line to take those actions necessary to impede this machinery of destruction that we are witnessing. And I suggest to you that if Portland and its leaders are willing to come together and join with the community to do that, we could set an example that could electrify this nation and the world. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm Dr. Theodora Songas. I'm an environmental health scientist. I share the concerns of many of our community that Zenith is shipping crude and tar sands by rail through Columbia Gorge to Portland. It's alarming that Zenith has not been required immediately to test their preparedness for a tar sands oil release. The numbers of unit trains to the Zenith facility have increased significantly, thereby increasing the risk of an accident. A derailment with a breach of tanker cars, a fire, or an explosion would result in long-term damage to the health and life of this community. 25% of the population of Multnomah County lies within the rail route evacuation zone. Our concerns are not overblown. In May, a crude oil rail car exploded as it was being cleaned out, killing 2 workers and injuring 4 more. Crude oil contains high levels of volatile air toxins that can threaten the lives and health of residents and workers. I am particularly concerned about the increased risk of exposure to hydrogen sulfide and benzene. Ambient levels of benzene in Portland and much of the airshed already greatly exceed benchmarks. Exposure to benzene causes leukemia, aplastic anemia, and other diseases of the blood and bone marrow. Hydrogen sulfide is an irritant and chemical asphyxiant and is highly corrosive. Through olfactory fatigue, the ability to smell the gas is lost, even though it is still present. Death can result from even low exposures to hydrogen sulfide gas. Over time, corrosion from hydrogen sulfide occurs in pipelines, rail cars, trucks, and storage tanks, increasing the risk of deadly accidents. Therefore, I request that you carefully scrutinize the activities of Zenith and deny any and all permits related to these shipments of crude and/or tar sands oils. Even more importantly, I urge you to take the bold action needed to protect the lives of the people of this city. Prevention of harm is certainly within your purview, and it is your duty. Please implement that ban now, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. We have time for 3 more. Don Stinky, Diana Pettis, and Mark Wishner. Denmark, it looks like Denmark Wishner to me. It is Denmark? I got it right. Please, come up.
Hello, I'm Don Stanky. We stopped 2 oil terminals in Vancouver. Zenith is a threat to Vancouver, Portland, and the Columbia River. Our insurance consultant said that an oil train accident in Vancouver would cost $6 billion, and no insurance is available to cover it. Rail accidents happen all the time. In 2011, Portland's fire department responded to a massive ethanol train fire on Highway 30, and they felt lucky it was not in August. In 2015, 2 oil trains carrying Alberta tar sands crude derailed, caught fire, and exploded in northern Ontario in midwinter. Requires Zenith to have full insurance for a worst case scenario. If they are not fully covered, don't send police to remove protesters from their property. If you don't issue a stop work order, maybe you could condemn their property. Maybe, these are just ideas. Maybe dig up the public right-of-way in front of their gates and driveways. Maybe change your seismic requirements and in the liquefaction zones. I got to hurry up here. Don't count on DEQ to be much help. Their funding comes from their permit holders. They work for Zenith. DEQ has allowed serious permit violations near the Expo Center for 12 years, in spite of many angry letters from Hayden Island residents. Investigate the option of the Army Corps getting involved in this. And Portland's effort to stop Pembina propane in 2015 was brilliant. And Vancouver's effort to stop the oil terminals in Vancouver was unprecedented. I urge this council to also get creative. Thank you.
Greetings, City Commissioners. My name is Diana Perez, and I'm here speaking as a resident of Vancouver and also part of the League of United Latin American Citizens for Portland and Southwest Washington. First, I want to say that all the trains that service Zenith would travel through my neighborhood in Vancouver in front of my house. I live in what would be considered the blast zone. There are at least 11 U.S. Census tracts in Vancouver that are ranked as high risk for pollution by the Washington Environmental Health Disparities Map, where Zenith's dangerous crude oil would travel through. The Washington Environmental Health Disparities Map is an interactive map tool that compares communities across our state for environmental health disparities. The map shows pollution measures such as diesel emissions and ozone, as well as proximity to hazardous waste sites. In addition, it displays measures like poverty and cardiovascular disease. The 11 U.S. Census tracts or neighborhoods that I mentioned consist of elderly, young families, people with disabilities, professionals, blue-collar workers, children, students, and people with English as a second language. Of all the known health risks associated with the crude by rail transport, such as fires, explosions, and spills, the one that we are most concerned with is increased air and diesel particulate matter pollution. Concerned healthcare professionals have gone on record to both the governor of Washington and Oregon, stating diesel exhaust from train engines, fine particulate matter, carcinogenic air toxins have proven to lead to adverse health impacts associated with exposure to diesel particulate matter, like cancer, cardiovascular and cerebrovascular diseases, neurodevelopmental disorders, pulmonary disorders, reproductive disorders, and mortality. Now, add the poor air quality from the growing wildland fires and increased heat waves throughout the Pacific Northwest. The risk is now exacerbated and only to be getting worse. I ask you, how real is the City of Portland's climate action plan? Zenith's operation is a litmus test of how committed the city is to implementing its fossil fuel zoning code amendments, which passed unanimously in late 2016. Implementation is needed as soon as possible before any more projects like Zenith ever emerge. And finally, my father is battling stage 4 cancer, where he worked at a Chevron refinery. And it is because of his hard work as a machinist that he is now tackling and fighting for his life. There are many people who are in that same boat. The climate action plan is also a need for an adaptation plan, and it's important to include our future with fossil fuels in there. I also wanted to acknowledge Yadira, who's our young adult leader for the League of United Latin American Citizens here in Portland.
Quite a few years ago, those of us who fought the proposal for an oil terminal in Vancouver were told by our city council, we're with you, but there's nothing we can do. Now they are among our strongest allies. "400 years ago, John Donne said, 'Do not ask for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee.'" My message to Zenith and to Tim Geithner sitting there in New York, do not ask for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. All of the people who have come to Washington and Oregon did not know who the hell they were messing with. This is the Pacific Northwest. We have something precious, and we will fight and do everything we can to protect it. Be with us or get the hell out.
Thank you. We're moving into the final portion of the evening, and this is when we get an opportunity for our Bureau people to answer some questions that you have. We have quite a few. I know we're not going to get through all of these. We're going to get some information tonight. We're also going to keep these and look at them. If you had things to say and you haven't been able to, again, there's the comment cards, and there's also online. You'll be able to do it there. So, and I'm going to read these exactly as they're written. And again, some time to respond to these. Oh, I knew there was one thing. Before that, we need to hear from Terry Whitehill from the Bureau of Development Services.
All right. Good evening, everybody. And again, I'll tell you who I am. I'm Terry Whitehill with the Bureau of Development Services, the building official for the city of Portland. Yep. How's that? Is that better? All right. State law requires the city to issue permits and allow occupancy of structures if they meet current codes when the permits are filed, as well as all applicable laws. State law requires fire suppression, containment systems to be installed, such as foam suppression, sprinkler systems, sprinklers of adjacent buildings, and containment in case of a spill, whenever hazardous materials are being stored or transferred. This project consists of construction of 3 new rail car unloading platforms and removing the old platform. The structures were designed assuming the materials being loaded and unloaded are hazardous. The building code does not address the type of use allowed in a particular property. Rather, it addresses the fire and life safety of structures themselves. This is currently an allowed use at this location. The new structures will be significantly safer than what is being removed. And what I'm talking about here is the 2015 permit that was issued for the construction of the new rack for the offloading terminal. I wanted to let everybody know, full disclosure here, that we will be issuing a temporary certificate of occupancy to Zenith for the first phase of their construction project later this week.
So are we? We have 30 minutes. We can be talking, we can be actually answering some of these questions. Okay? So we have the questions right here. I would like the city council folks to explain what the obstacles are to shutting Zenith and what they are trying to do to shut it. And again, whoever wants to take that first.
So I would like the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability to also go through the list of the items that we have identified that we are going to do. There was a lengthy list, and I'd like you to tell the folks here what we've been talking about. And I'm going to also reflect on a couple of other things. I heard a couple of good ideas that in my opinion, warrant further conversation. I agree with whoever said if there is a way to require insurance, either for economic or environmental or public health remediation, I strongly support that strategy. Number one. Number two, if there is some way for, there's the group here that counts the cars. We obviously don't regulate rail traffic. That is the federal government. However, it's come to my attention that in some jurisdictions, I don't know if there are any domestically, but in other jurisdictions, in an attempt to mitigate the diesel particulate that comes from the locomotives themselves, you can actually tax that. And that won't stop it, but it makes Portland less of a desirable destination relative to other places to be where people are bringing their oil trains, because ultimately we don't want the oil trains to come here. A lot of people said they want us to take action to stop the expansion of fossil fuel. A couple of people mentioned the 26 city ordinance. That's coming back to the city council, and it's going to come back to the city council with the issues that the court specifically identified when they remediated, what's the word, remanded it? When they remanded it back to us. We're eager to bring that back to the city council with those issues addressed so that we can actually implement it and prevent the expansion of fossil fuel infrastructure in this community. It's pretty clear to me that that isn't, I'm hearing from the public, they don't want it, I don't want it, so we're going to make that happen. We're bringing it back when? October. In October.
Okay. So it's their opportunity now to respond. So, did anyone else want to respond to that first question before I ask the second one? It is my understanding that the city and first responders are not notified when trains carrying Canadian tar sands crude. Oh, thank you. Sorry.
So I'm Tom Armstrong with the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, and as Mayor Wheeler said, we are working with the City Attorney's Office to bring back the fossil fuel terminal zoning code with the legal findings that the courts found that we were short on, but ultimately on some of the major issues we prevailed on. So it is a fix-it bill for those original terminal zoning restrictions on storage tanks. In addition to that, we're bringing back in a second ordinance, I guess, tightening some of the loopholes that Zenith has used around the pipe racking and the transloading and the offloading facilities, and also exploring how we can ban the storage of unrefined fossil fuels, which is what is going in and out of Zenith, and also looking at revising those comprehensive plan policies, and that'll follow after we adopt the old ordinance. And then finally, as suggested in testimony, we're looking at how the city can submit comments to DEQ on the Title V air quality permit renewal for Zenith and global partners in Class Kenai. And both of those processes should unfold through DEQ later this fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here comes the question. Yeah. It is my understanding that the city and first responders are not notified when trains carrying Canadian tar sands crude are coming through Portland. What do we need to do to change this?
Lieutenant Christensen from Portland Fire and Rescue. He's the hazmat coordinator for Portland Fire and Rescue. I think he'd be the best person to answer this question.
Okay, yes, that is true. We are currently not notified on a daily basis. Sorry, can you hear me better now? Okay, so the first part of that question is correct. We do not get notified on a daily basis of trains coming in. What we do get notified on is any changes in quantity. So if there is an uptick or if there's a decrease in shipments, we get notified through the State Fire Marshal on that. As far as notifications on a daily basis, that would have to come through because rail is regulated by the federal government. That's going to have to come from the federal level to push that notification down to a local level.
I'd like to, may I add to that?
Go ahead.
So it's clear that there's a community right to know on what's being stored, what's being shipped. It's clearly not strong enough. One of the tasks that I have that the commissioner and the mayor and staff have directed me to do is strengthen this community right to know. Now we know right now, I think once the companies out here, and this is not just at the Critical Energy Infrastructure Hub, but all around Portland, there are storage tanks of flammable liquids and toxic liquids all over the place. The companies fill out the surveys and send them to the state, but you know, if I were to ask and poll people, I would, and myself included, I don't know what's stored in these tanks. And so we need to strengthen this community right to know. We do have a right to know, and it needs to be stronger language. So that's one of my tasks. I wanted you to know that.
Anyone else want to respond? Okay, a related question. I work in a laboratory upstream from the Zenith transfer site. An emergency generated by the more volatile tar sands will be amplified by the many industries nearby. An explosion will likely evolve into a chemical spill situation at our facility. Is the City of Portland prepared to respond to such a large and dangerous event? Additionally, the area is subject to liquefaction in an earthquake, which means that an increase in train traffic will make a dangerous derailment more likely. Are first responders ready for such a complex disaster?
I get that one again. Okay, so as far as Portland Fire in conjunction with Portland Police and Emergency Management, we have prepared for large-scale events for many years. Specifically, we have focused on train derailments. We have focused on tank farm emergencies and hazardous material releases. Are we 100% prepared at this point? I would say no, because no community would be. But we have trained, we have drilled, we have equipment on hand with regional partners to mitigate any of these hazards. So,
I can help with that too. So one of my other tasks I was also your fire chief in 2016 till recently, before I was your emergency manager, and it was clear to me when I visited the one or two fire stations that are close to this critical energy infrastructure hub, that these firefighters, and just on their engine company, these are residential firefighters. These are the individuals that would come to your home if it caught on fire or a commercial property. That's what they're equipped for. That's what we trained them for. And that, I say little, because compared to the size of this infrastructure hub, this little fire engine sitting outside of the front entrance of this energy hub, you talk to these firefighters, and they are concerned about the day they're going to have to send that fire truck inside that energy hub. So one of the tasks I think we have to do, and this has also been a direction of the commissioner and the mayor, is for me to find a way to adopt a policy to regulate some form of fee on, I don't know how we will do it, what we'll put the fee on, but this fee to leverage dollars so that we can support emergency rescue and actually build and submit or have the equipment and train the firefighters specifically for this type of an event. If these other oil industry sectors have fire brigades that are on staff that are actually on property, we don't have that here. And I didn't have the comfort and the confidence when I was the fire chief that I couldn't sleep at night knowing this was going on. So that's also one of the tasks. I must figure out a way, and I think a fee structure is the way we have to do it, to force policy and collect the dollars and pay for some better, more enhanced emergency response.
Anyone else want to respond?
So may I, one of the things that I learned when I went to tour Zenith last week, I think it was last week, was they have lots of answers to how they would respond to an emergency. And when I said, here's a great example. So we have a lot of poor air quality days. What's different in your operation when there's been a poor air quality day announced? What do you do differently? And they couldn't answer that. So they said they would investigate and let us know. We also heard them say that they would, if any spill happened, they would be on the front line, cleaning it all up, making sure that everybody was held harmless in our area. Now, I'm just telling you, this is their rap, right? This is their rap. Did we walk out of there thinking, oh, this is the best company ever? No, right? But what I did walk out of there knowing is that we have to attack this from multiple areas. We have to demand DEQ does its job and not allow them to take shortcuts, right? We have to make sure that we encourage them to have as much insurance as would be necessary to make the entire Portland metro region whole again when a spill happens. And third, we have to do everything that we can legally do to make this the worst place possible for them to want to do business, right?
Next question. My 6-year-old daughter's school is 1/10 of a mile from railway tracks. Every day I worry that she and her friends will be in class during an oil train derailment. What can or will City Council do to keep her safe? Want to expand, reiterate, keep going? Okay, thank you. As a city, what is our ability to require frequent, extensive rail safety evaluations for the transport of fossil fuels? Can permitting be required? As a city, what is our ability to require frequent, extensive rail safety evaluations for the transport of fossil fuels? Can permitting be required?
At this point, the city, I don't believe we have any authority to regulate the train tracks itself. At our meeting with Zenith, we had the rail companies, and it is up to the Federal Rail Association to administer the maintenance and inspection of those tracks.
Okay, anybody else? Okay. What can Portland implement so we no longer need hearings like this? A ban? This time is better spent on how to move toward a just, clean energy future, not whether we should go backwards. We should not. Let's move on. Okay. At the very least, will City Council declare an immediate moratorium as it with the DEQ studies what chemicals are in the tanks and does a full study of risks? Is there a response to that one? Okay. Some of these feel like comments and then others questions.
So I actually think we are looking to see just really what is it that the city of Portland through regulation, remember, the state has a big responsibility when it comes to regulating this kind of activity. The federal government has a responsibility, and clearly, we as the city leadership have a responsibility. But there's some things we can do, but some things you're gonna have to help us put pressure on the state help us put pressure on the federal government, right? So we will look. We have legal counselors looking at every legal avenue that we have, but the reality is, because there's a multi-governmental jurisdiction, we can do our piece, but our piece won't work unless we are in cooperation with the state agencies and the federal agencies that also have responsibility.
What will you do to put in place a strategy to deny all permits to Zenith? Do we response? Move on? Okay.
So the thing to remember with the building code is that we're about safety and the regulations of safety. We never say, the building code doesn't say what you can and can't do. So to stop it, we need to get some regulations and other parts that can make that distinction. When they get to the building code permitting process, all that the building code says is this is what you have to do if that's what you're doing. It never says you can't do something, it just tells you the safety precautions you have to put in place to do it.
Okay. Let me know if some of these start sounding similar. Has the city challenged the bogus certification for the remediation of spills? Has the city begun to prepare a requirement for liability insurance for extreme hazards of the tar sand oil? I think you talked about that. Do building permits attach to the property? Do Thank you. Do building permits attached to the property can be transferred to new owners? Can this be done without review? Can permits thus be sold without restrictions?
Yes, historically that is the case. As long as they transfer that right of that permit, then that can be done, yes.
And I just want to add something. I'm with the city attorney's office, and I want to add something to that. I'm with the city attorney's office. My name's Robert Taylor, and I'm very mindful that Zenith is listening to this right now, and so I want to be very careful with what I say. However, we understand the need to look very, very closely at the permits. We have received that from folks in the city, this council, this mayor, these commissioners. We have looked at that. We will continue to look at that. We understand the passion in this room and the requirement that we do that. What we do to try to address this problem has to work and has to be able to stand up in court. So there are a lot of good ideas here, and some of them I think will stand up in court, right? There's been talk about an insurance program. I think that's possible. There has been talk here about concerns of a new pipe and what might the city do to say no to that. We're looking very, very closely at these issues. The mayor and council has also asked the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability and the Bureau of Emergency Management to look at new seismic regulations for these bulk fossil fuel storage tanks. These are things we think we can do. They're on the list of things that this council has asked us to generate over the last few months because we understand the urgency in this room. But please just understand, what we do has to stand up in court, has to work if we're going to really address this problem.
Thank you. This is the last card I'm going to read, and then anyone who wants to make any final comments before we adjourn. Thank you, City Council, for putting a spike in this expansion. Do it as soon as possible, and let's move on. Final comments?
I want to reiterate how much I appreciate the dedication that people have put into this issue. We understand that what we're talking about is the safety of our community, and we're talking about not going backwards when it comes to fossil fuel as compared to our new green economy that we all want to move towards. Thank you for being here. We will be reaching out to folks who showed up to when we have these issues in front of the city council so that you can come and make sure that you're supporting the changes that we're making. We will make sure that you know if we're having conversations with state agencies that have a responsibility to not allow them to circumvent what the rules are. Like DEQ is a great example of that. So we have some work to do, but I think my closing message just is, we are with you. We understand the danger that as a community we're facing with this expansion, or just with them being here, period, right? Whether they expand or not, the fact that they're here makes it more dangerous to live in this community, right? So we are with you. We just, as I couldn't say it any better, we have to do it so that it works, not so that we're in court for the next 20 years, right? Battling back and forwards. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And please stay engaged with us as we work through this process. Thank you.
I just want to quickly thank you all for being here and say I've been uncharacteristically quiet during this Q&A because, number one, I don't have bureaus that are actively involved. Number two, I'm just really trying to listen to and absorb everything you're saying while brushing up on some of the realities that we're facing here. And a couple big concerns of mine is BNSF and United Pacific, the two railroad companies involved, have declined to detail routes traveled by their trains. So we actually don't know where these trains are traveling, but we think they're traveling through St. John's and this neighborhood, University Park. I took Willamette to this event tonight. I was overwhelmed by fumes and began having a coughing fit. I live in Woodlawn, about 1 block outside of the blast zones. I don't know that the trains are traveling in my neighborhood, but I just want to put it out there that not only do I live in these communities, but I'm suffering the effects of our poor air quality, which I want to go on record again as saying it's just inexcusable. Multnomah County has the worst air quality of any county in our state. And the other issue I want to raise is that we in Oregon have decided not to require these companies to disclose as much information as other states, and that is an issue with the legislature. So I don't want to deflect any responsibility. We're, I think, clearly on the same side of this issue. I appreciate the passion, but we are constrained by the state, by the federal government, and by our own local rules and regulations, which is the main thing we have to work with. So I'm interested in working with community members on a city, regional, state, and federal strategy. I think we could definitely start with the state of Oregon doing what Washington does, which is reporting rail shipments to regulators 24 hours in advance, so at least we know what's coming through our communities. And finally, it is just profoundly disturbing to me that we allow companies to put our communities at incredible risk that we absolutely know we are not prepared to deal with. We can't be. That's not a failure of our first responders. That's a failure of our state and federal governments, mostly to regulate these industries. So I really want to work with you. We all do. And I want to thank you again for being here.
Thank you. Mayor Wheeler, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I always like to quote Abraham Lincoln. He said that the dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. As our case is new, we must act anew and we must think anew. We must disenthrall ourselves, and then we will save our country. And I think, as I think of that quote and what you all said tonight and what you reflected to us, number one, we want to limit the expansion of fossil fuel infrastructure and trains coming through this community, period. Number two, we do not want the city of Portland to be a fossil fuel export colony for Canada or for anyone else, period. Number three, what I heard is people do not want us to wait for the federal government or for the state government or DEQ or anybody else to act. And I agree with that, because we could be waiting an awfully long time. On the other hand, if we simply rely on the same old tools that we've been using for a long, long time, we're not going to make a lot of headway. It requires new tools, and it requires us to act at the local level in the capacity where we have the ability to act. And you heard a couple of ideas being proffered by the folks up here. You guys made some suggestions. The Enviro organizations, they have a fresh outlook and some new ideas too. This is not the end of the conversation here tonight. This is but the beginning. This is but the beginning. And we're asking people to hang with us, to work with us, to continue to give us feedback, and yeah, hold us accountable. That's your job too. So we're leaving here, I think, with a whole bunch of good ideas. This is a great starting point. I'm very appreciative of everybody taking time on a beautiful night to come here and be heard. All of us on the Portland City Council, thank you. All of these ladies and gentlemen from various bureaus and organizations, we thank you too. Thanks for being here tonight. Thank you to our moderator
Thank you.
for doing a great job. Thank you
Thank you.
for the University of Portland. Thank you all. We're adjourned.